So, with GTA 6 very often being talked about as one of the most anticipated and also most delayed video games of all time, I think it'd be very interesting to take a look into what cities that I think a Grand Theft Auto game could be set in, and cities that I think would actually be better than where they're setting it. Because what they're doing is they're setting GTA 6 in Vice City, which is based on Miami, and they already had GTA Vice City set there. And I feel like the Grand Theft Auto games have gotten into this loop of just constantly reusing the same few cities over and over again, essentially like Los Angeles, New York, and Miami. And if we're lucky, maybe another game in San Francisco or Las Vegas, which they already did in San Andreas. So it's like the same 3 or 5 cities being reused constantly. And I think the game series really needs to expand outside the scope and scale. Like, the thing is, I understand when the creators say, "Oh, it's a satire of American culture. We want to set the games in America." But the thing is, frankly, there's only so many interesting or unique cities in America that you could set these games in without it feeling constantly the same all the time. And also, as Rammstein said, "We are living in America, America, it's wunderbar." Like, the whole planet is increasingly feeling largely Americanized. So it's like, you can make a game satirizing those same elements in many other countries of the world simply because such cultural elements have become so universal. And I think there's some places that are in some ways more American than America, and that's what I'm going to go over in this video. And not all the places, but I think some of them would be interesting for other reasons too. So I'm going to be talking about the top 5 cities that I think would be most interesting to set a GTA game in. Okay, number 5 would be Dubai. Now, I think Dubai would be potentially the most controversial, and I don't see this one really working out, but I think it would be interesting in theory, because when I talk about places that are more American than America, the Persian Gulf petrostates are by far the number one on that list. They take the tackiness, crassness, commercialism, consumerism, and all these aspects of American culture, and they turn it all up to 11. They just run with it in a way that exceeds the furthest excesses of Las Vegas or Orlando or anywhere that is associated, or Miami, or anywhere that's associated with like the excesses of Americanism. So I feel like Dubai in that sense would be a perfect place to set a GTA game, because if you want to satirize these things, like, where better than Dubai? The issues that would be potentially problematic is that, obviously, since the UAE is a Muslim country, a lot of Muslims would get very offended at the premise of a GTA game set in a Muslim country. Like, for instance, if there's mosques in the game, the fact that you could even like shoot bullets at the mosque would piss them off a lot. Actually, that's a good question. Has there ever been a video game that has a mosque in it where you can shoot the mosque and where features of the mosque will be destroyed? I don't know. Then again, like, to be fair, in GTA, it's not like all the buildings are destructible. Like, a lot of the buildings, you can just shoot at them all day and nothing will happen to them, or throw grenades at them all day and nothing will happen to them. But I feel like if so much as like one window on the mosque was destructible, Muslims would riot about the existence of this game. So I don't know. I could see it being dicey in that regard. But nonetheless, it's like, if you want to satirize Americanism, like, where better than there? Because they're more American than America in those regards. The other thing is that, yes, it is a majority Arabic speaking city. And I think there has been a reluctance to set GTA games in non-English speaking places, because you run into the issue of, like, what do you do about language in the game? because part of the fun of GTA is being able to go around the city and hear like the things that pedestrians say, like the various pedestrian dialogues and conversations, and like you definitely lose out something if it's like mostly not in English. And having everyone speak English would just not reflect the reality of the place. So I don't know. That would be potentially an issue. Not to mention not only the pedestrian dialogues, but in the gameplay itself, like in the main story mode. I mean, Dubai is a fairly international city, so you would have English used somewhat, but I mean, Arabic still is the lingua franca of the city. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know what they would do in that regard. But nonetheless, I think it would be an interesting city to consider. Okay, number 4 on the list is New Orleans, and it's the only one actually in the United States that I've put on this list. I think New Orleans would be it would be an appropriate choice for a GTA game because it has a lot of the characteristics associated with GTA. Like, it's an American city that is known for having a high crime rate, and there's kind of this whole like mythology of its criminal culture. So that would be something that would fit very much with the GTA game. I would say of all the ones I'm listing here, it's probably the most likely to actually happen, but I still don't see it happening simply because they're just so obsessed with staying within the same loop of like 3 to 5 cities. And it's kind of funny because it's like the GTA games in and of themselves, despite parodying conservatives, have become extremely conservative in this regard. They're just totally unwilling to go outside this loop of 3 to 5 cities that they just constantly want all the games to be set in. It's really lazy and really sad. But New Orleans, yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful historic city, so it'd be cool to have the architecture there. You could set it potentially during Hurricane Katrina. That would be interesting as well. Like, at least part of the game could be set during Hurricane Katrina. Yeah, I mean, I could see it working. The only drawback, okay, the biggest drawback is the fact that they already had New Orleans in Red Dead 2 would make it a little bit awkward because it's like, do you use the version of New Orleans from Red Dead 2 as the basis for this version of New Orleans, which would obviously be much bigger because it's set in the present day or closer to the present day, as opposed to Red Dead 2, which is set in the early 20th century when the city was much smaller. Yeah, fair enough. Like, I mean, there'd be the awkwardness of that. It's like, do we use the Red Dead 2 version of New Orleans as the basis for this city and just make it a lot bigger and change some things here and there? Or do we just completely start from scratch? And also, it's like, it does create the awkward question of like, are the GTA and Red Dead games set within the same universe? Like, fair enough. There's that. But nonetheless, I think having a GTA game in New Orleans would be interesting. Like, I think on a cultural level and in terms of like just having this like backdrop of a crime-ridden city that is also a tourist destination and also has a lot of historic architecture, a lot of culture, I think it would fit in the GTA mold quite well. Now one drawback would be there's not really any mountains or even hills nearby, and like they often like having mountains in like the rural areas surrounding the city because you can do a lot of fun stuff there. I mean, what they're doing in GTA 6 is they're just bullshitting it, and they're just like including like, I guess, something that's like kind of based on like the Great Smoky Mountains, and they're like pretending that it's in Florida or whatever. Like, I think that's what they're doing in GTA 6. So I guess they could do something similar in New Orleans, just like wherever the closest mountains are, just pretending it's in Louisiana. Yeah, I guess they could do that. But yeah, I think all things considered, if they're really unwilling to look outside the United States, I would very, very, very strongly recommend that they set a GTA game in New Orleans. Like, I understand. I get it's been done. Like, I think, yeah, one of the Mafia games was set in New Orleans, and also, yeah, Red Dead 2, as I mentioned. But even though it's been done, it's like, okay, Miami, New York, LA and also San Francisco and Vegas have been done ad infinitum by your own franchise and also by other franchises too. So frankly, it's like New Orleans would still be less repetitive and less redundant in that regard compared to just recycling the same cities that GTA has already done. So yeah, that would be my number 4 pick. Number 3 would be Naples, Italy. Now, Naples, I think, would be very interesting because it could be a lot kind of like the TV series Gomorrah. Like, it could focus heavily on the mafia, on kind of like the impoverished segments of the city, the people who are heavily involved in organized crime. Like, there's a lot of crime lore to build on there. Also, the city itself is very interesting. A lot of historic architecture, a lot of very atmospheric neighborhoods, like with narrow streets in historic buildings. Now, it wouldn't be the best city in terms of like, there's a lot of emphasis on driving in GTA. It would be good for like kind of like tight quarters combat and stuff like that, but it wouldn't be great necessarily for like car chases unless you're like in a motorcycle or something. That's kind of the thing that makes it a great city to travel to in real life, because it's not car centric. But in a GTA game, that could be a drawback. However, the areas around Naples would provide more opportunities for that, like outside of the historic city center. And also you'd have a lot of great natural scenery with like mountains and like islands with mountains and stuff like that nearby, like the Amalfi Coast and the islands of like Procida, Ischia, Capri. Like there's a lot of, and Mount Vesuvius. Like it would be a great setting in many ways for a GTA game, and it's also a very beautiful area. Like there's a lot that it would have going for it. But the main thing is, okay, people would say, well, what about the language issue? Like, you can't have pedestrians speaking English everywhere aside from a few tourists and stuff. Nor, same with, like, the main characters. Like, how would it work? Would it be like one of those things where it's like, kind of like in Vikings, where they're speaking English to you, the viewer, the player of the game, but yet, they're not actually speaking English? Or would the whole thing be in like Italian or like whatever Neapolitan dialect with subtitles? I don't know. I could see it going either way. But yeah, I think Naples would be very interesting for a GTA game. It would be a lot of fun. That's for sure. It's a lot of fun to go to in real life also. Same with New Orleans for that matter. But yeah, I think that would be a great and interesting choice. My second choice would be Rio de Janeiro. Now, I kind of feel like Max Payne 3 was sort of like the beta test for this. Like, they put Max Payne 3 in Sao Paulo, and I think they were kind of testing the waters to see if there'd be an interest in like a GTA game set in Brazil. And I feel like that's why they had Max Payne 3 in Sao Paulo, not Rio, because they were doing Sao Paulo as the beta test, and they were leaving Rio as the potential, the big one for GTA. Now, that didn't end up transpiring, so I don't know, maybe the reaction to Max Payne 3 was more muted than they expected. I don't know. To be honest, this is entirely my own theory. I have absolutely no evidence to support this, but it is just a personal theory of mine that is what Rockstar was doing with Max Payne 3. But yeah, I think a GTA game in Rio, it has actually been rumored. Like, there have been rumors of a GTA game set in Rio de Janeiro. There's rumors that like GTA 6 would be partially set in Rio or something like that. And none of these have ever come to transpire. But I do think like Rio, in many ways, in almost every way except for the language issue, would be a perfect location for a GTA game, because you have the crime lore, like the favelas, but you also have this environment that's like tailor-made for a video game, with like a city that is built around mountains that you can like jump off, parachute off, whatever. Like, there'd be so much cool shit you could do in Rio de Janeiro in a GTA game. Like, it seems perfect for it. Just the entire layout of the city. Like, the city, it literally looks like a video game map. Like, the city really does. I mean, it feels so perfect in so many ways. I don't know. Yeah, like with the mountains, the city, like the beach, like all of that combination, plus the favelas, it just feels perfect for a GTA game. And if they could somehow like just get around the language issue, I don't know how they do it. Like make it like in Vikings where they just speak English, even though you know it's not actually English, or have the whole thing in subs. I don't know. But yeah, I think Rio would be great for a GTA game. And there's only one city on Earth that I think would be even better, and for many of the same reasons. And that is Cape Town, South Africa. With Cape Town, South Africa, you'd have a lot of the same advantages as Rio de Janeiro. Like, Cape Town is essentially kind of like Rio's twin city on another continent. Like, it's a city that is built around mountains, like very jaw-dropping, beautiful mountains. And it also has a lot of slums, mixture of rich and poor, of different races, of people from different backgrounds, a lot of crime. But unlike Rio, there's one huge advantage for a GTA game that Cape Town would have over Rio, which is that it is at least partially an English-speaking city. Obviously, there's a mixture of English, Afrikaans, and various African languages, like Black African languages. But to my understanding, English is kind of the lingua franca in South Africa. Afrikaans not as much as it used to be, but English more so these days. And you could work around that a little bit. Like, it's close enough that you could kind of just have the game set in English. Like, you could have like a few random pedestrians here and there speaking Afrikaans or speaking African languages, but the vast majority would speak English. And all the scenes, like most of the characters, like would be speaking English. Like maybe 80-90% of the dialogue could be in English, and then you'd have a little bit of Afrikaans with subtitles sprinkled in here and there for effect, you know, kind of like District 9. Like District 9 was a lot like that. Yeah, I mean, just do that. Honestly, I think Cape Town would be fucking perfect for a GTA game. And again, South Africa has a lot of the same issues as the US. Like if they like parodying kind of that sort of society with like a lot of income inequality, a lot of kind of car-centric, you know, Grand Theft Auto, like a car-centric society. Like there's a lot of parallels between the US and South Africa that you could exploit there. Now, obviously, they'd probably have a lot of like left liberal messages, which I wouldn't agree with, but nonetheless, I mean, GTA has kind of always been like that, and it's like, I'd rather it be like that in a new place than in just reusing the same old place over and over again. I just really hope what they would not do, I really hope they would not have like some version of Orania and make them the bad guys. I would really hate that, because it's like, come on, really? You're going to pick on some tiny little small town? Like, okay, if they want to have some like redneck Afrikaners as the bad guys, fine, but just don't try to tie it in with Orania. That's just stupid. Because really, Orania, they're not rednecks, okay? Like, and portraying them that way is just unfair. But there are some Afrikaners who are like that. Like, there are some of these Afrikaner militias that are more like, you know, essentially far-right rednecks. Like, they do exist. But I'm saying portraying Orania that way would be completely unfair. But nonetheless, yeah, okay, that's the one thing I could see the game doing. I could see it having a lot of anti-white narratives and stuff like that. I mean, it's unavoidable to an extent, like setting anything in South Africa, but frankly, it's unavoidable in the United States also these days. There's always going to be these narratives. I would hope that they wouldn't make the game super woke, but like, GTA has always had some left liberal leanings, albeit they've been left liberal leaning, but also willing to be somewhat politically incorrect also, because the games do portray minorities in the US fairly accurately, in the sense like there are a lot of like black gangbangers, Hispanic gangbangers, and people of that nature. So I would guess like a GTA game set in South Africa could be similar in that regards. Like, there probably would be some messages about like, oh, the evil bad white racists, but there'd also be like depictions of like black and colored. Colored is a term in South Africa for a racial category of like intermediate people between black and white who have, I think, also some other ancestry like Malay or whatever. But yeah, black and colored people in South Africa, it could also portray them like accurately, like the gangs and how like the colored gangs knock out their teeth deliberately and shit like that. Like there's a lot of that stuff in Cape Town. They could research it and like make it accurate in that regard, like the depiction of the criminal and gangbanger scene in the slums of Cape Town. It would be pretty interesting, and it would be, again, a departure from the normal US setting, but similar enough to the US that like you could still parody a lot of the same things and you could still have it predominantly in English and have it still be believable that they're speaking English without having to like resort to some confusing like Vikings style explanation, like, oh, they're actually speaking Portuguese, oh, they're actually speaking Arabic, whatever. Or having like the whole thing in subtitles, which would be, yeah, people wouldn't like that either. Which is sort of what they did in Max Payne 3. And like, again, I'm not sure how people reacted to that. Like Max Payne 3, a large portion of that game was in Portuguese, and they actually didn't translate it to English. It's sort of like you're supposed to see it from Max Payne's perspective, where he has no idea what anybody's saying. But yeah, I mean, my point is, like, I think with Cape Town, they could sidestep a lot of those language issues and still have a lot of the same benefits that you'd have from like Rio de Janeiro, where it's like you have this city built around the mountains, which would provide a lot of cool opportunities for like horsing around with like parachutes or motorcycles or cars or whatever, like on the mountains. And like, you know, you could like parachute off the mountain and ambush gangbangers in some neighborhood nearby or something like that from the air or something like that. Like there'd be a lot of cool opportunities to mess around with like the mountains and the city and all that. And I think Cape Town, just like Rio, would provide a lot of those opportunities for gameplay, both in the story mode and free play. So, I mean, I think all things considered, I think Cape Town would be the best candidate for a GTA game. But all these cities, I think, could be potentially good candidates. And I really hope they just stop reusing the same cities over and over. It's getting very tiresome. I don't care, even if it's updated with better graphics and more detail, it's still uncreative because it's still just reusing the same damn cities over and over. So, yeah, those are my thoughts on that.